So when we look at the terminology there, it's way foreign to us. In fact, we tend to have either evolved or co-opted a lot of this stuff. So things like liberal arts. Well, is that political? And arts, that's only painting, right? Or when you're talking about the trivium, you're talking about grammar, dialect, and rhetoric. Well, rhetoric is bad, right? If you engage in rhetoric, then you're like politicians who do this. Or grammar, that's just the English. The quadrivium. It's all these words are either used differently or are lost on the wayside. Even gymnasium is in there, way different. So how do these liberal arts shape a student's intellectual and, what you're saying, the moral development in practical terms?
Well, first of all, in that question of in the liberal arts, um, liberal just means it comes from the Latin free. The liberal arts were the arts of a free person. Well, what are arts? Arts are the best English equivalent is skills, intellectual skills. So when you see that expression, arts and sciences, what that means is they're using it in the old sense. Art as a skill and science as a body of organized knowledge. We think of science as just the natural sciences, but there's also the theological sciences and the human sciences, what we call the humanities. Those are sciences in that old way of using those words. So you have the sciences and the arts, and liberal arts just simply means the intellectual skills of a free person, the skills you need to have intellectually to conduct yourself in a free society, because there's nobody to lord it over you now and make all your decisions for you. You have to do that now in societies like our own republic. Um, and then this got a little mixed up with Dorothy Sayers because she's using the first three of the liberal arts, the three linguistic liberal arts, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, as labels for a taxonomy of learning, how children learn, which is
Right.
kind of progressivist in its emphasis. Although she was not a progressive, she was using them in a conservative way. But so that got a little mixed up with her emphasis, and I think that's kind of the movement has, I think, kind of understands that now that that the liberal arts are those seven intellectual skills, three of them linguistic, four of them quantitative or mathematical. Um, uh, that so like uh, the irony there is that we think of math as being in somehow different from the liberal arts. We use liberal arts to mean the humanities is what we that's how it's used with all these books that come out on the liberal arts. That's not the traditional usage of it. Actually, math is a liberal art. It's a quantitative liberal art, and people don't realize that. Um, but but I think I got away from your original question. Actually, what remind me of what it was again, and I'll try to answer it.
So just looking at all these different uses and bringing it back to understanding things like when we use those part of the trivium like grammar,
Mhm.
but how do these liberal arts then shape the student's intellectual and moral development in practical terms as we
Oh
were
yeah,
alluding
right,
to?
right, right. Well, I'd say that the liberal arts in the broadest sense does that, which we used really to mean arts and sciences, because in terms of just intellectual skills, you're learning grammar. You're learning how our language is structured. This thing that we use every day, we're able to do it a whole lot better if we understand how it works. And it also, I think, teaches it's really basic thinking skills to be able to understand the grammar of our own language, which we do best by studying another one. Uh, you always learn grammar better by seeing it in an unfamiliar form because you take everything you say in your own language for granted. It's hard to, it's like looking at your own eye or something. You can't, it's hard to study something that's so close to you. And so what we do at Highlands Latin School is we teach Latin because Latin is number one responsible for about 60% of English vocabulary. So you're learning what words fundamentally mean, but also you're learning these rules about how a noun operates, how a verb operates, how an adjective operates, And you don't see those in English, even if you know it pretty intimately. We don't have noun cases in English.
Right.
In Latin, it's not the subject is not the first word in the sentence. It's the thing in the nominative case. And so they use sentence diagrams to try to teach this to you in English courses,
Hmm.
and it almost never works. Uh, you need a foreign inflected language like Latin to really understand grammar. So you do that. Logic, obviously, the benefits of that should be obvious, I guess. How to reason well, and then rhetoric, how to be persuasive in a good way, if you follow Aristotle here.
Right.
So all of those involve a sort of discipline, and I think really the fundamental thing you need to be a good person is this discipline. You're not going to argue in a way that sounds good but really isn't logical if you know logic, right? Or at least you'll be very apparent to you that you're not using logic properly. There's those things, but also the way that liberal arts is used today to mean also the humanities. Really, this is where you learn how to be a good person. This is training in being a good person, is literature and history. History does it by giving you exemplars of good behavior in a kind of extrinsic way. You're looking from the outside on these people and their actions, and you study them in history. But in literature, you get into their very psyche, right? You're in the mind of a person, and sometimes many people, in a novel that you read. And if you're reading great books, which are also good books, then you learn, and you can do this even with books that aren't great. You can read a Louis L'Amour novel, and in a Louis L'Amour novel, the protagonist is always a good person, and you're
Right.
in his mind, and you acclimate yourself to the way this person thinks and how he treats other people and this sort of thing. And so that teaches you morality intrinsically because it teaches you how to think like a good person. And the people who are presented to you both in history and literature are inspiring people. You want to be like them.
Right.
Really, the only way that morality works is by imitating a good person. And the best book on this, by the way, is William Kilpatrick's Why Johnny Can't Tell Right from Wrong.
Mm.
He articulates this better than anybody I think I've seen.
His whole series is very good too.
Yes.
Why Johnny Can't read?
Yes.
Why? Yeah.